Her sister burned her certificate. But what happened next will shock you. How did a young girl, crushed by betrayal and fire, rise from ashes to become a respected doctor? This true story of heartbreak, jealousy, and unstoppable courage will leave you speechless. Don't miss a single moment. In the small village of Medina, surrounded by dusty roads and quiet farms, two sisters grew up under the same roof, but with very different destinies. Nalela, the younger sister, had a spark that made her stand out. She was always buried in books, solving math problems on banana leaves, reading borrowed science notes by the soft glow of a kerosene lantern. While other girls spent time learning to cook or braid hair, Nalela spent her evenings helping old women in the village gather herbs, not for healing, but simply because she was curious about everything. Teachers from the nearby school often said Nalela had the brightest mind they'd ever seen. She never missed a day, no matter the rain or heat, and her results spoke louder than any praise. When the national district exam results were announced, her name was printed at the very top of the list. She didn't just pass, she made history in Medina. People came to see her name on the board, clapping, smiling, saying, "This girl will change her family's future." And they were right. A letter came weeks later from Nokoba City. She had been accepted into the best medical university, the first in her entire district to get such a chance. But in the same house, hidden behind forced smiles and quiet silence, lived her older sister, Chisomo. Unlike Nalela, Chisomo's school life had been filled with struggle. She failed twice, dropped out, and slowly faded into the background of village life. But what stung most wasn't her failure. It was the way their mother always lifted Nalela high, saying things like, "She'll be our doctor one day," while barely acknowledging Chisomo's presence. At gatherings, relatives would call Chisomo the other one and crowd around Nalela like she was already a star. Inside, Chisomo's heart twisted with envy. She watched Nalela get new shoes, a neat suitcase, and people offering money for her bus to the city. At night, she lay awake, wondering why it couldn't have been her. She worked too. She tried, but no one saw her efforts, only Nalela's success. And as the day of Nalela's departure grew closer, so did the weight in Chisomo's chest. She said nothing, but her eyes followed every move Nalela made, folding her certificates, packing her bags, smiling in her sleep. In the eyes of the village, Nalela was a miracle. To her mother, she was a blessing. To her teachers, a rare gem. But to Chisomo, she was a shadow too bright to live under. Chisomo's silence wasn't peace, it was pain. And while everyone celebrated Nalela's rise, no one noticed Chisomo slowly drowning in bitterness. The storm was building, and no one saw it coming, not even Nalela. Chisomo watched her younger sister shine like a star, but inside, she was breaking. At every family gathering, people only had eyes for Nalela. "She's going to be the first doctor from Medina," they said with pride. "She'll bring honor to this village." They brought gifts for Nalela, books, new clothes, even a small watch. But no one brought anything for Chisomo. She sat in the background, quiet, scrubbing pots and pouring tea. When she forced a smile, no one looked twice. No one asked how she felt. Every compliment to Nalela was like a tiny cut to her soul. At night, Chisomo stared at the ceiling and whispered to herself, "Why not me?" She wasn't lazy. She wasn't wicked. She just wasn't seen. All her life she had tried to do good, helped their mother in the market, cared for their baby cousins, even picked wild fruits for the neighbors. But her efforts were invisible, like she was a shadow walking beside her sister's light. When the letter from Zalimba University came, Nalela screamed with joy. "I got in," she cried, holding the envelope like it was gold. Their mother burst into tears and hugged her. The neighbors came running. There was dancing, clapping, blessings. But Chisomo stood at the back, holding a jug of water, invisible again. Her heart clenched tighter. That night, as everyone slept, Chisomo sat alone, staring at Nalela's certificate and admission letter on the table. The candlelight flickered across her face, and a thought crept in, dark and heavy. If I can't be great, she won't either. It wasn't sudden. It was slow, like a quiet drumbeat in her chest. She began to avoid Nalela. She answered in short, cold words. She offered no help as Nalela packed for university. And every time she saw that certificate, perfectly folded and placed inside a folder, her chest burned hotter. It wasn't just paper. It was the thing everyone loved more than her. Chisomo smiled during the day, but her heart screamed in silence. No one noticed the change. They were all too busy preparing for Nalela's journey. "We must buy her a suitcase," their mother said. She'll need shoes for the hospital. Every coin, every word, every blessing was for Nalela. Chisomo felt like an outsider in her own home. Bitterness ate at her day by day until it felt normal. Then came the moment that would change everything. Nalela was out fetching something from the nearby shop. The house was quiet. The folder lay on the wooden table, just as always. Chisomo walked toward it, her hands trembling. She opened it. The certificate stared back at her, bold and proud. Her fingers brushed its edge, and before she even understood what she was doing, the decision was made in her mind. If I can't have my chance, she won't have hers either. The flame was small at first. A corner caught fire, then another. The paper curled, darkened, and turned to ash, and Chisomo watched it burn, not with joy, but with tears in her eyes. She had broken something precious, but in that moment she didn't feel powerful, just lost. The night before Nalela's big journey to Nakoba City, excitement filled the small house in Medina. Nalela carefully folded her certificate, ID card, admission letter, and all other documents into a bright yellow folder. She placed it inside her travel bag and zipped it with care. Her heart was racing. After all the years of studying under lantern light, she was finally going to university. Their mother cooked her favorite meal that evening. Laughter echoed in the house. Neighbors stopped by to wish her well, dropping off gifts, soap, biscuits, even transport money. Nalela went to bed smiling, her dreams full of white coats and city lights. But not everyone in that house was smiling. Chisomo lay in the dark, her eyes wide open, her mind spinning. She had watched her sister all day, beaming, glowing, loved. Every smile Nalela gave chipped away at Chisomo's pride. That yellow folder had become a symbol of everything she didn't have: attention, praise, a future. And that night, something inside her snapped. When the house fell silent and the kerosene lanterns dimmed, Chisomo rose from her mat. She moved quietly, holding her own lamp, feet bare on the cold floor. She crept into Nalela's room like a shadow. There it was, the yellow folder, sitting by the bag, untouched, so easy, so close. Her hands shook as she opened the cap of the lamp and poured the oil onto the folder. It soaked through the papers like water on dry cloth. She paused for a moment, her heart pounding, her breath shallow. Then she struck a match. The flame danced, bright and eager, then dropped onto the folder. Instantly, it caught fire. The edges blackened, the paper curled. Chisomo stood there, frozen, watching everything burn. Nalela woke coughing, her room filling with smoke. She screamed as she saw the flame. She grabbed a cloth and tried to put out the fire, but it was too late. Her bag was partly burned. The folder, her documents, were nothing but ash and melted plastic. Neighbors rushed in with buckets of water. Her mother cried out in shock. The fire was quickly controlled, but the damage was done. Nalela sat on the floor, shaking, clutching the remains of her folder. Her future had turned to dust in seconds. I think she left the lantern on, Chisomo said softly, standing in the corner, pretending to look concerned. Maybe it tipped over when she moved in her sleep. The neighbors nodded. It made sense. The lantern was known to be old. No one even looked at Chisomo twice. As the night stretched on, Nalela wept quietly. She didn't know how she'd ever recover her documents. Her mother held her and whispered prayers. Meanwhile, Chisomo returned to her mat, her face calm. No one suspected the truth. No one saw the guilt behind her eyes. She had destroyed her sister's dream, but instead of feeling satisfied, her chest felt heavy. The fire had not only burned paper, it had burned trust, and something inside her heart too. The morning after the fire, Nalela sat quietly under the mango tree, her eyes swollen from crying. Her yellow folder, now a pile of ashes, lay in a small metal basin. Her mother tried to comfort her, but she herself was too shaken to say much. They had no backup copies, no scanned documents. Everything was gone. When they contacted Zalimba University to explain, the response was harsh. No documents, no admission. There was nothing they could do. Word spread through Medina faster than the wind. At first, villagers came to express sympathy, but soon, their tone changed. Some began to whisper, maybe she never passed those exams. Did anyone actually see the certificate? She always acted too proud. People Nalela had known all her life now looked at her with suspicion. At the market, women stopped including her in conversations. The tailor who promised her a farewell dress said he'd given the fabric to someone else. Even her old schoolteacher sighed and shook his head. Such a waste of talent. What hurt most was the silence at home. Her mother, usually full of support, now sat with a blank face. One day she even said, Nalela, are you sure you didn't just imagine the whole thing? Maybe the letter was fake. Nalela's world began to collapse. When the village elder visited, everyone gathered in the square. He stood tall with his staff and said, "Maybe it's time to accept what has happened. Not everyone is meant for books. Start a trade. Sewing, farming, hair braiding. Make yourself useful." Nalela didn't argue. She just nodded, then walked away. But inside, something was burning even hotter than the fire that ruined her folder. Weeks passed. Nalela stopped talking much. She stayed indoors. Depression settled in like a fog. But at night, she still pulled out her old school books and read. Page by page, she forced her mind to stay sharp. She began writing down everything she remembered from her exam scores and letter. Her handwriting shook, but she kept going. Something in her refused to give up. One afternoon, while drawing water from the well, she heard laughter behind her. It was a group of girls her age, mocking her. "Hey, Dr. Nalela, can you prescribe us something for failure?" They laughed harder. Nalela didn't respond. She carried her water home and closed the door behind her. But instead of crying, she picked up her pen again. She started writing a letter to Zalimba University. She explained the fire, the lost documents, the neighbors who saw the acceptance letter before it burned. She even described the envelope it came in and the exact words of the dean. She sent the letter, not expecting a reply, but hoping, just hoping, that someone would believe her. She didn't know what the future held, but one thing was clear. She would not let the fire be her ending. Even if the whole village turned against her, Nalela refused to let her dream die. Not like this. Nalela packed her small bag and left Medina with nothing but determination in her heart. The bus to Nokoba City was loud and dusty, but she didn't care. Her dream still lived, even if the path to it was now unclear. When she arrived, the city was overwhelming. Tall buildings, endless noise, and people who never smiled. She had no contacts, no documents, and barely enough money for 2 nights in a shared hostel. By the 3rd day, she saw a help-wanted sign outside a big gate. The Ayodo family was looking for a live-in house cleaner. Nalela knocked, introduced herself, and by evening, she was scrubbing their kitchen tiles. The Ayogos were a wealthy and busy family. Madame Ayodo hardly looked at her. The children barely noticed her. She cleaned floors, bathrooms, and windows from morning till night. But at night, after everyone was asleep, Nalela would tiptoe into the pantry where the youngest child kept his old schoolbook. She borrowed one every night and read by the dim corridor light, whispering the words to herself to keep her mind sharp. Her room was a small corner space near the laundry area with a mattress and a broken fan. She didn't complain. She ate whatever was left over and never wasted time. Every month, she saved part of her small salary and hid it in a tin under her mattress. It wasn't much, but to her, it was her future. Other maids in the neighborhood often gossiped during their break, laughing about rich people's drama. But Nalela kept to herself. Her eyes were always on a different goal. Some mocked her. "Who studies after cleaning toilets? You think books will rescue you from this life?" But she smiled and kept reading. One night, Madame Ayojo's sister visited with her son, a young medical student named Kamso. He saw Nalela reading an anatomy textbook and raised an eyebrow. "Where did you get this?" he asked. She told him she borrowed it. When he questioned her more, she shyly shared her dream. Kamso didn't laugh. Instead, he nodded slowly. "You're serious," he said. "Don't stop." After that day, he sometimes left behind his old notes for her, quietly. No one else knew. Nalela used every break she had to study. She watched medical lectures on borrowed phones. She walked to the city library every Sunday and sat for hours in the free reading room. Slowly, she began to feel like herself again, not just a cleaner, but a girl who still had a future. She sent another letter to Zalimba University, with her savings included, to reprocess her lost admission. This time, she included a statement signed by Kamso, verifying her past grades and passion. She didn't know if it would work, but she wasn't the same broken girl from Medina anymore. She was working, she was saving, she was learning, and her dream, it was still alive, stronger than ever. It was a hot afternoon in Zalimba when Nalela carried a stack of borrowed textbooks back to the city's old public library. Her hands were full, her back ached from hours of cleaning, but her eyes were alive with focus. Just as she reached the library gate, she noticed an old woman stumbling near the entrance. People passed by, ignoring her, but Nalela ran forward without thinking. The woman collapsed. Her breathing was uneven. Nalela dropped her books and quickly knelt beside her. She checked her pulse, loosened the woman's scarf, and tilted her head gently to ease her breathing. Then she reached into her bag and pulled out a bottle of water, wetting a cloth and placing it on the woman's forehead. Minutes passed. The woman slowly opened her eyes. You didn't panic," the woman whispered, her voice weak but steady. "I remembered what I read," Nalela said softly. A security guard rushed over and called for help, but Madame Temwa, the woman, insisted she was fine. She sat on the bench, recovering, and watched Nalela gather her scattered books from the ground. "What are you studying?" she asked. Nalela hesitated. "Medicine," she said quietly. "On my own." "Where?" "I didn't get to go. I clean houses. I just read at night." The woman's eyes narrowed, not in disbelief but in curiosity. She introduced herself as Madame Temwa, a retired nurse and once a guest lecturer at Zalimba Medical College. She asked Nalela to sit beside her. For the next hour, they talked. Nalela spoke about Medinza, about her lost documents, and her broken dreams. Temwa listened without interruption, her face unreadable. "You applied pressure to the right point on my wrist," she said finally. "That's not luck, that's knowledge." Nalela looked down. "I only know what I read. That's more than many students I've taught," Madame Temwa replied. She took Nalela's number and told her to come by her home the next Sunday. "I want to show you something," she said. Nalela nodded, unsure what it meant. That night, Nalela couldn't sleep. Hope, small and delicate, started blooming in her chest again. The next Sunday, she went to Madame Temwa's house, a modest, cozy place filled with old medical books, awards, and photographs of former students. Temwa handed her a folder and said, "Fill this out. It's a recommendation for special admission. I'll sign it." Nalela froze. "But I don't have a certificate." "I believe in what I saw," Madame Temwa said. "Let the board ask questions. I'll speak for you." Nalela's hands trembled as she took the folder. For the first time in a long while, someone believed in her dream, not because of papers or title, but because of what she carried in her heart and mind. She left Temwa's house with tears in her eyes, not from sadness, but from the feeling that maybe, just maybe, the road to her dream wasn't closed forever. Nalela's life changed, but not in the way most would expect. Madame Temwa didn't hand her comfort. She handed her a chance. Through her connections, she got Nalela into Zalimba Medical College's night program. It wasn't free, but with Temwa's help and her own savings, Nalela scraped together enough to begin. By day, she still scrubbed floors, washed windows, and polished stair rails in the Ayojo household. By night, she transformed into a focused student in a lecture hall full of strangers. Some came from wealth, others from middle-class homes, but none came from where she did. None had to hide their textbooks in laundry baskets. None wore second-hand shoes with holes on rainy nights. The first few weeks were the hardest. Nalela was always tired. She'd sweep until sunset, rush through the crowded streets to the college, barely making it in time to take notes under flickering lights. More than once, she fell asleep, with her pen still in her hand, her notes trailing into scribbles. But she always woke up early, cleaned with quiet strength, and returned again. Some students mocked her. One even whispered loud enough for her to hear, "Why let a cleaner into our school? Does she disinfect the class after lectures too?" Nalela heard it all, but said nothing. Her silence was her shield. Her books were her weapon. Her dream was her fire. But not everyone mocked her. Some watched her closely, watched how she never missed a class, how her answers in group discussions were always sharp, how her lab reports were precise. A few even started sitting beside her, borrowing her notes, respecting her grit. The teachers took notice too. Her scores were consistently high. Her questions were deep. She didn't just study to pass. She studied to understand. At home, Madame Temwa remained her quiet support. She offered advice, extra notes, and sometimes simply hot tea and a place to rest. She never treated Nalela like a charity case. She treated her like a future doctor, and Nalela never let her down. The months turned to years, and on graduation day, when her name was called as the top student of her class, the room erupted in applause. Even the doubters stood up. Nalela walked across the stage in a borrowed gown, her head held high, and received a certificate printed with gold lettering. A certificate earned, not given. One that could never be taken, burned, or buried. In the crowd, Madame Temwa clapped with tears in her eyes. Nalela had not just passed, she had risen, not just in grades, but in spirit. That night, as she placed the certificate carefully in a frame, she whispered to herself, "This one, no one can touch." She had done it. Cleaner by day, student by night, doctor in the making. Years had passed since Nalela first arrived in Nokoba City, with nothing but a broken dream. Now she stood tall, confident, and ready for the next step, an internship at Zalimba General Hospital, one of the best in the country. After several tests and written exams, she made it to the final interview. Her heart raced, not from fear, but from excitement. This was what she had worked for, suffered for, dreamed of. She wore a plain white blouse and held her neatly arranged file, her new, official certificate, shining proudly among her papers. She entered the interview room, greeted the panel, and sat when asked. The room felt calm, until the final panelist walked in late. It was Chisomo. The moment their eyes met, time stopped. Chisomo, dressed in the hospital's HR uniform, froze. Her face turned pale. She stared at her younger sister as if she had seen a ghost. She had not seen Nalela since the day she left Medina. In her mind, she believed she had destroyed her forever that night. But here Nalela was, stronger, sharper, and more composed than ever. Chisomo's eyes dropped to the file in Nalela's hands. She slowly reached for it, her fingers trembling. She opened the folder and saw the certificate. Zalimba Medical College, first-class graduate. Her lips parted, but no words came out. I thought you, she stammered, her voice barely a whisper. Her eyes kept darting between the certificate and her sister's calm face. The truth was standing right in front of her, dressed in dignity and success. Nalela looked at her, steady and unmoved. Her voice was calm, but carried weight. No fire can burn destiny. Chisomo blinked, her mouth still open, unable to speak. She remembered the yellow folder, the kerosene, the flame. She had thought she won that night. She had felt proud watching everything burn. But now, shame crept over her like a shadow. The very person she tried to destroy was now standing before her as a doctor, while she herself was just a clerk behind a desk. The room remained silent for a moment. The other interviewers noticed the tension, but said nothing. Chisomo quietly passed the file to the next interviewer, unable to lift her head. The rest of the interview continued, but Chisomo's hands shook throughout. When it was over, Nalela stood and nodded politely to the panel. As she turned to leave, she glanced at Chisomo one last time, not with anger, but with a quiet victory that spoke louder than any revenge ever could. Outside the building, Nalela breathed deeply. The sky above Zalimba was wide and blue. Her journey had been long, painful, and nearly impossible, but she had made it. Her dream was alive. Her fire hadn't burned out. It had only grown stronger. The sun shone brightly over Zalimba Medical College as hundreds of proud graduates filled the ceremonial grounds in their white coats. Among them stood Nalela, her head held high, her heart full. The moment she had dreamed of, cried for, and worked tirelessly to reach had finally come. Her name was called, and as she stepped forward, a thunder of applause erupted, not just because she had graduated, but because she was being honored for something greater. She was awarded a special medal for resilience and courage in the face of hardship. Her story had quietly spread across campus. The cleaner who became the top student, the girl who studied by candlelight, who lost everything and started again. Today, the world saw not just a new doctor, but a symbol of hope. After the ceremony, a group of reporters surrounded her. "Tell us," one asked, "how did you do it? How did you keep going?" Nalela took a deep breath and looked into the cameras. She didn't name anyone. She didn't need to. Her voice was steady and clear. "Years ago, someone tried to burn my dream. They set fire to my documents, thinking that would end me. But dreams don't burn. They rise, like ashes turning into light." The crowd went silent, listening closely. She continued, "I cleaned floors. I borrowed books. I studied in secret. I failed, I cried, but I never stopped. Not once. Because I believed that even if the world forgot me, I would never forget who I wanted to become." Her words struck hearts. Social media caught fire within minutes. Videos of her speech were shared, reposted, and praised. The girl who rose from ashes became a trending headline. People across the country saw her story, felt her strength, and wept with inspiration. Back in Medina village, the entire community gathered around a neighbor's small television to watch the ceremony replayed on the evening news. Elders sat in silence. Mothers wiped tears. Children stared wide-eyed at the screen. Nalela, their Nalela, was now Doctor Nalela. Her mother cried openly, holding a scarf Nalela had once worn. The same villagers who once whispered doubts now whispered prayers of thanks. In a dim, crumbling apartment far from the city's light, Chisomo sat alone. She watched the video on a cracked phone, her eyes hollow, her fingers trembling. The sound faded in her ears as she stared at her sister standing on stage, smiling, honored, loved. The apartment was silent except for the quiet hum of the fan above her. She remembered the night of the fire, the smell of kerosene, the pride she had felt as the flames consumed the folder. That pride had turned into shame, heavy and sharp. Now it burned her from the inside. Nalela hadn't exposed her. She hadn't sought revenge. Instead, she had won in silence, letting success speak where words never could. Justice didn't need punishment. It came in the form of glory, pure, undeniable, and bright for all the world to see. Nalela came back to Medina not as the defeated girl everyone thought she was, but as a woman on a mission. The same village that once doubted her now watched in awe as she opened a small health clinic right in the heart of the dusty streets where she grew up. It wasn't a fancy hospital, but it was a place filled with hope, where women and children could come for care, where healing began, and where dreams like hers could grow. When people asked her how she managed to rise after losing everything, Nalela just smiled quietly. She told them, "When my certificate burned, I didn't lose my knowledge. The fire took a piece of paper, but it couldn't burn the years of hard work inside my mind or my heart." Her voice was calm but strong, a reminder that real power lies within, not in documents or titles. The villagers who once whispered doubts now came with respect. Mothers brought their babies. Young girls came asking for advice, and even the elders nodded in approval. Nalela wasn't just a doctor. She was a symbol of courage and determination, proof that failure and betrayal couldn't stop a true dreamer. Word spread beyond Medina. People from nearby villages came seeking help. The clinic grew, and with it, Nalela's legend. The story of the girl whose certificate burned but who still became a doctor inspired many. It showed that destiny isn't about what's written on paper. It's about what's written in your spirit and the strength to keep moving forward. Nalela's clinic became a beacon, a living lesson in resilience. She didn't need fancy awards or fame anymore. The real victory was in the faces she healed, the children she saved, and the hope she restored. She often thought about that night when the fire destroyed her certificate. What seemed like the end was really the beginning. That burning was not a curse. It was a spark that lit a fire inside her, a fire that no one could ever put out. Her persistence built a legend, stronger than any paper could prove. In Medina, everyone learned this truth. Your destiny isn't in a certificate or a letter. It's in your heart, your hard work, and your refusal to give up, no matter what tries to stop you. Nalela's story was proof that no matter how dark the night, the dawn will always come if you keep believing. And so, the girl who lost everything became the doctor who gave everything back. Her burned certificate didn't end her dream. It created a legend that would inspire generations. If you ever feel like the world is against you, remember Nalela's story. She lost everything, her certificate, her chance, even the trust of her own village, but she never lost her hope or her courage. Her journey teaches us that no matter how hard life tries to break you, your dreams and your spirit are stronger than any fire. You don't need a piece of paper to prove your worth. Your persistence and heart will write your true story. So, if you're going through tough times right now, hold on. Keep pushing forward. Keep believing in yourself. And don't let anyone's doubt or betrayal stop you from reaching your dreams. Like Nalela, you can rise from the ashes and build your own legend. If this story touched your heart, please like this video and share it with someone who needs to hear this message today. Your support helps us bring more inspiring stories like Nalela's to the world. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more powerful tales of courage, hope, and triumph that will motivate you every day. Thank you so much for watching. Remember, your destiny is not written on paper. It's written in your strength to keep going. Stay strong, stay hopeful, and keep shining.